Hey, what's up, you guys? Welcome back to the PHNX Mercury podcast. I am your host, Erika Day, and I'm joined today by the esteemed Stephen Garner. Stephen, how the heck are you?
Excuse me, mic off. I'm all good though. I'm blessed. Rookie mistakes. We all. I'm blessed though. I'm blessed and looking forward to talking about some very interesting times that we see in the Mercury being challenged with. But on the bright side of things, you all are. Well, first of all, thank you for tuning in with us. You are speaking to two credential media members who will be tapping in for the 2024 WNBA All-Star weekend. So, shout out to Erika for the work that she's put in. Shout out to you all for supporting us the way that you have. We are looking forward to tapping in with everything that is Phoenix in the end of this week, actually, going into All-Star weekend. So we're looking forward to getting some content up for y'all and just generally enjoying the vibe. It's going to be a fun time. It's going to be a hot time, but it's going to be a fun time.
If you can't tell by my forehead, I got pretty sunburned this weekend, which is extra funny considering there was a hurricane/tornado in our city. So I don't know how we got both of those going on at the same
Wow.
time.
Sheesh.
But, nonetheless, I'm excited that my skin is going to be peeling just in time to see Asia Wilson and Nafisa Collier once again, just in time.
That's tough. It sounds like summertime. That's all I heard.
But nonetheless, I forgot to mention, I know what I said last week, but it's just going to be an ongoing thing that we have a new favorite producer every week. So luckily this week we're joined by Mr. Eric, and Eric's heard before. He is my favorite. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So if he didn't hear what I said last week, we're in business. So I'm pretty excited to be here with you, Stephen, with Eric, with all the folks in the chat. And that reminds me, if you're watching on Twitter right now, be sure to click the link below, which actually I don't know the link is up. So let me put that up right now. And then you can join us in the live chat on YouTube. We already have Mr. Ogre McFubin, Andy, Michelle, David, Shelby. I know Kobe's somewhere in here, Chantel, Andy, the whole squad's already here. So if you're not here, click the link below, get in here and join us because, again, like Steven said, we got some really interesting things to talk about. Almost like the Mercury scored 9 points and a quarter or something, but we'll get there. We'll get there, right?
We will most definitely get there. Definitely want to shout out Eric, my longtime guy. Appreciate you for all your efforts with everything. We don't have the best of news on the technical side, but we are here because of Eric and his efforts. So again, thank you to E. We appreciate you, and let's have a good show, Erika. Let's get to it.
Well, let's start with, I guess, what we saw over the weekend. We started on Friday. The Mercury were in Indiana facing the Indiana Fever for the second time this season. And, I won't lie in that the game started out pretty poorly. Stephen talks pretty consistently about how negatively it impacts the Mercury to have subpar 20-point quarters. And they had 2 in the first half, which led them to being down pretty bad in the second half, and they really had to claw their way out. And so, it is saying something about their resilience that they only lost by 9. But as Stephen and I kind of said earlier in this season, this team isn't about moral victories and never has been, and quite frankly, never will be. And so losing by only 9 is not good enough for them.
It's not. And I think naturally, of course, you got to apply the context with this game. No Diana Taurasi, no Shook Sutton, no Natasha Cloud, last minute kind of game time decision. No Charisma Osborne. That's a lot for the Mercury to deal with injury wise. And then
on top of it, they lose Brittany Griner 11 minutes into the game.
Track forward into the game, and then you lose BG with the hip injury. That's just, it's gonna really take like a Herculean effort from Kahleah Copper, which we quite literally saw still in the second half of that game. And they still almost surmounted that deficit that they were at. Nearly had to come back and won. So obviously, like you prefaced with, no moral victories for this team. But again, with the adversity injury-wise that they saw, and in addition to the injuries pregame, losing BG in the first half, also Rebecca Allen was on a minutes restriction. So she could only play X amount of minutes in said game. So they really played the second half with about 5 players, 5.5. That's just not gonna win against a WNBA team. We talk about the competitive level from top to bottom in the league. That's just too much to kind of surmount or overcome. Nonetheless, when you have Kahleah Copper, you always have a chance. And like you said, they nearly erased the deficit, came within single digits, came within a couple of possessions in that second half. And just speaking to that second half, the Mercury scored 51 points. Kahleah Copper was responsible for 25, I believe. 23 via her own scoring, and I think she had an assist that resulted in 2 points within all of that. So she accounted for nearly half of all the points scored. Want to shout out Sophie Cunningham. In that second half, she also had 11 points, knocking down 3-pointers, including 2 crucial ones as they really started to threaten that lead that the Indiana Fever had established. Also want to shout out Kiki again for knocking down some timely baskets. She had 2 3-pointers made in that second half of that game as well. But yeah, it's just tough. Like, I will definitely be able to apply that scoring less than 20 points in the quarter context to the game against the Connecticut Sun. But I think for that game, that's like the one time that they would get like a pass from me just because of all of the things out of their control that they really had to go against the grain with. And again, yet and still, you see them lose by 9 points, like you said. No more victories in that, but when you look at the adversity that they saw in that game, to have lost by only 9 points, it really speaks to the resiliency that this team has and the leadership of Kahleah Copper. Like, she'll be the first to deflect it and say that it's very much a team thing, but the team has to find somebody that's going to start a fire to follow behind. And she was quite literally that in abundance in that game. And like I said, she scored 23 points in the second half, 36 points in total in that game. And she just continues to set the nets on fire.
I think also some additional context is we've talked at length this season about how difficult it is to get a road win in this league. But then on top of it, you go to Indiana of all places. I mean, we've talked about how when Indiana came here, it felt like an Indiana home game. And so nonetheless, going to Indiana is that and no bag of chips, right? Like, it just gets that much harder. And so not to say, again, I'm just overly impressed, but I am pretty impressed with that second half effort, especially like Stephen was saying, considering the players and the, kind of manpower that they had in the game. I mean, it was Celeste Taylor's first. We haven't even said that. Our faux pas.
I was going to get to it next. It's crazy.
My bad, y'all. Honestly, I completely skipped the housekeeping. My bad. Let me grab the broom and sweep because housekeeping. Celeste Taylor got signed to the Phoenix Mercury, and her very first game was against her ex-team, the Indiana Fever. I know Steven's just itching.
She got signed. No. I just wanted to say she got signed 8 hours before she got thrown into the fire.
They were literally shooting around. Literally. Email.
How many plays can you memorize? Let alone get your actual jersey stitched with your name and number on it before playing in the game. Like, this is the adversity that they were up against in this game against the Indiana Fever. And Celeste had to play like a legitimate, like, main rotation type of role in terms of minutes. She compiled.
Was the point guard during the game.
She had to play point guard. It was crazy. It was crazy. And to see her just come in and find a way to kind of have a impact on things and just chipping in, again, just speaks to where this team is. And that's all I really pretty much had on Celeste. You couldn't ask for much more than she gave.
Yeah, I mean, dog eat dog mentality for sure from Celeste Taylor. Like, and that is really understating the performance. She had the highest plus or minus on the team while only scoring 1 point. And if I need to say any more words to you, then I don't know what else you want from me at this point. She played damn good. And again, like Stephen was saying, literally 8 hours of practice. And McFubin getting that jersey was a stressful moment for the Merc equipment manager, no doubt. I'm honestly sure that it was a stressful day for everyone involved. So I'm just impressed that the team came out. You could tell that the vibes were still good. I mean, you watched there's some clips going around of DT and Tosh having just a grand old time on the bench. And I think you can't ask for much more when, you have your point guard sitting on the bench for them to still be making the difference in terms of good mentality and vibes on the bench, right?
Yeah, you said that well. And I think that speaks to the attention to detail, like the understanding of the journey and the process is going to take to get to where they ultimately know that they desire to be. I think Rebecca Allen mentioned it post-game. It was either Beck or Sophie mentioned it after the Connecticut game, which we'll get to next. But they both spoke to them understanding, just kind of looking at it from a wider scope and not just in the moment. And kind of on the positive side of things, obviously they know they can play better than they have. But on the positive side, they also understand that it's kind of a good thing that they're not their best selves at this point in the season, because there's a lot of basketball left and a lot more meaningful basketball left post All-Star break, post Olympic break. So I think that looking at it through that lens is it has good reasoning and it has legitimacy behind it. But at the same time, you need them to handle their business in the meantime. They're not doing it as a team at this moment, but I will say they can't be themselves without Kahleah Copper being who she's been the last pretty much the entire month of July. We got more stuff we're going to speak to with Kahleah, including some graphics and stuff, so you guys can literally see the numbers and where she's ranking on the league status coming soon after we get done speaking to the games. But teams are throwing the literal kitchen sink at her. Help from every which way, seeing numerous matchups over the course of games, all types of defensive schemes in addition to the help. She just quite literally does not care who's guarding her, what the defense and help is, and what the scheme is, or if she's at home or on the road. She is giving everybody capital B buckets. She has been the second best scorer in the entire WNBA in July and in the entire season. And there's been stretches where she's been the best scorer in the W. I don't think that's changing in any capacity. And I think that she's operating in the manner that this team needs her to, for them to be their best selves. I think everybody else is going to fall in line in terms of handling their business to their respective role in time and be healthy enough to do so. Nonetheless, you have to have somebody galvanizing your group. She's doing that and then some right now.
Well, the last time the Phoenix Mercury went to Connecticut, I told y'all last week, I've forgotten about it. It's a big black blob in my brain that I just have completely pushed to the back. And they tortured me because they're like, Erika, we're going to get it close in the first half. We're going to keep it tight. And then we're going to come out in the second half and we're going to do nothing. And you're going to love it. And I was like, okay, I'm feeling flashbacks, PTSD. I love this. And I've been so excited to come talk to Stephen about it, because one thing about Stephen is I know he's going to talk me off the ledge. I already know. That's what we do here on the show. And so I'm really excited to hear Stephen's thoughts on this game in Connecticut on Sunday.
Well, this, considering how obviously the first matchup that you're speaking to, which was the front end of a road back-to-back going from Connecticut to New York, without Brittany Griner, without Beck Allen, and some other injuries in addition to all of that. That game and that stretch of games was the stretch of games that it was. You don't have to speak too much to that. The next time they played Connecticut 2 Mondays ago, actually, to this date, was not pretty either. This is a team that has an identity that's a contrast to nearly everything that the Phoenix Mercury like to do. Identity for identity. Styles make fights. If you watch boxing or you like UFC or any sort of mixed martial arts, those are the best things that kind of make for intrigue when it comes to two opponents going up against each other. And that is quite literally what the Connecticut Sun and the Phoenix Mercury are. And we have seen now for 3 games, the Connecticut Sun just have, I'm not going to say too much, but they've had just enough to really kind of dictate and have games played on their terms in particular. And the Connecticut Sun, not unlike the Phoenix Mercury, but in the manner that's respectful to their style of play, if you're playing a game on their terms, you almost have no chance of winning. Ask the New York Liberty about going up against the Connecticut Sun. The New York Liberty, if you don't know, have the best record in the W by a couple of games over the Connecticut Sun, who are in second place right now, actually. But ask the New York Liberty how it is playing games on the Connecticut Sun's terms. It's not fun. It's not fun at all, actually. And it just it speaks to why they're such a good team. Even with the brand new coach coming into last season, with Stephanie White taking over for Kurt Miller and having some other roster changes on the fringes, they still have this grit and grind mentality where if you're playing games on their terms, you're not going to be scoring north of 80 points in a game. You're not going to be knocking down as many threes as you're accustomed to making. And to that point, to both of those points, actually, in the 3 games against the Connecticut Sun this season, the Phoenix Mercury has scored 47, 69, and 92 and 72, excuse me. 47 in the first game, 69 in the most recent game from yesterday, and they scored 72 in a game that took place 2 weeks ago to this date. Neither one of those scores are indicative of the type of team that the Phoenix Mercury are, even on their worst day on offense. And for context, obviously the 47 is the least points that the Phoenix Mercury have scored all season. Their fifth or their fourth fewest points that they've scored this season, that 69, came against the Connecticut Sun. And then their sixth least points that they've scored this season came against the Connecticut Sun. Those numbers just really speak to how great the Connecticut Sun are, but you can't speak to how great the Sun have been in those games, excluding that very first game, without speaking to just the kind of lack of execution to process that we've seen from the Phoenix Mercury. And they left a lot more to be desired. I definitely have plenty more to speak to on that game in specific, but I definitely want to get Erika's thoughts on that game and just what your general take and reaction to it all has been so far.
I'll be honest in that when you get out rebounded 44-33, it makes for a difficult basketball game. Period. End of story. And my main gripe with this game wasn't necessarily that they were per se getting out rebounded. It's how they were getting out rebounded. I felt like they were straight up getting outplayed, out efforted. And I think that when you have a team that is as good as the Phoenix Mercury, you should never get out efforted. And on top of it, nonetheless, on top of getting out rebounded, it was like 3 offensive rebounds for the Sun in a row. And when you're giving a team such as the Sun 4 opportunities to score, eventually they're going to do it. And it's going to be hard to come back against that. And so when you can't get stops and you're unable to get rebounds, it just makes for a completely unwinnable game against a team like the Sun that has so many offensive weapons on top of the style of defense that they played.
I think you said that well. No defense, no rebounding, no rings. There's no ifs, ands, or buts that's non-negotiable in the process of winning a basketball game or being a champion in any capacity on a singular game basis or on a season-long basis or on a series basis, even for that matter. If you don't play defense, you don't grab rebounds, you are not going to win to the extent that your potential suggests that you can. And that it's just something that this team has to figure out. Nate's mentioned a ton this season how they have to be emphasizing gang rebounding. Prior to Brittany Griner coming back, they were solid with that because they knew they couldn't rely on one specific person to corral all of the misses from opponents. Natasha Mack did a sensational job filling in for the shoes that Brittany Griner was expected to fill prior to her actually being injured with the foot injury. So then you get Brittany Griner back, and they've taken 2.5 to 3 steps backwards in terms of their efforts on the glass. And I have a clip from having a conversation post game with Sophie Cunningham speaking to these entities, the defensive side, why they've seen struggles on that end of the ball, and then on offense, why they've seen issues as well. Just kind of really got a fully transparent conversation, just a quick one with Sophie, and her just really giving the details on everything. So if we can kind of get that clip up for the viewers to hear.
I think that if I'm hearing your question right, I think that in the half-court defense, our first line and all that is great. It's when the shot goes up when we can't get the rebound. Like we've all got to box out. When 4 of us are boxing out and one's not, that person's normally getting the ball. And so it's finishing plays. That's what defense is. You can have a great defensive possession, but if you don't finish with a box out and a rebound, that's where they're getting all their second shot opportunities. And honestly, as a defensive player, when you do a hell of a job and then you don't get the rebound, it's just a blow. And when you have one after another, it's just deflating down the stretch. And Connecticut, you can't do that. They're one of the best teams in the league. It's weird because they start off a certain way, but they keep getting better and better and better each quarter. And so you got to step up your game. You got to give them a lot of credit. They're a hell of a squad. They have a lot of great players on their team. But for us, we just did not play up to our potential today. Defense is all stemmed from our defense. And sometimes, when our shots aren't falling, which I don't think anyone shot besides Kah in the first half, our shots were falling. But we can't let that dictate our defense. That's not what our culture is about. That's not what this team is going to be about. It's not what it's ever been about. And so we've all got to come with a clear mind. And when we're having 9 points in a quarter, look on the other end, and we're probably turning the ball over offensively. We're not running our sets. We have bad spacing defensively. We're giving up wide open shots, transition layups. And so I think it kind of goes hand in hand.
You're muted, Stephen.
There you go. See, did it again. I think that was a very energetic, very articulate, very detailed conversation and a response in general from Sophie. She really, I think, hammered home a lot of what I've kind of been seeing. Definitely needed a player's perspective from somebody that's actually in the locker rooms, in the film sessions, is on the court when these things are happening. The first thing to speak to, the defense. I don't think that the Connecticut Suns saw the Phoenix Mercury play terrible defense yesterday. Do I think they played good enough defense to win that particular game? No, but I won't say that it was like the worst of defense. The issue is, as Sophie articulated in detail, when you get an initial stop, defense, like before I even get to that point, you can't finish a defensive possession without grabbing the defensive rebound. Therefore, rebounding is as big a part of defense as getting up a contest on the shot is, because that's something that's very much in your control. You can't control whether an opponent is going to make a shot or not, especially with the way that opponents make tough shots in the W in this day and age. What you can control is when players are getting a body on another body, especially the person that they're guarding in particular, moving them away from where the ball could potentially bounce to, and then pursuing the basketball after that. Sometimes we see the Mercury get into rebounding where they're putting a body on somebody, then they don't pursue the basketball. An opponent gets it, and then they end up getting an extra possession. And more than likely, when you grab offensive rebounding on percentage over the history of the game, you have a greater chance of scoring. It's just the way it works. You give a team more opportunities to score, more than likely they're professionals. They're going to score in that second or third or fourth chance. The Connecticut Sun had 15 second chance possessions yesterday. Erika, they scored 25 points off of 15 second chance possessions. And for context, looking at the Phoenix Mercury and their scoring over the course of that game yesterday, they had 20 points in the first quarter, 22 in the second quarter, 9 in the third quarter, 18 in the fourth. So the Connecticut Sun saw more points off of second chance possessions alone than the Phoenix Mercury scored in any given quarter over the course of that game. That is just unacceptable. That's just not conducive to winning at all. And it's a part of this team's identity that they have to figure out, because I feel like we talked about letting things kind of happen and kind of figuring out what this team is going to be based off of them kind of working through their process. I think we've got a solid number of games with Brittany Griner and Rebecca Allen in the mix now. We're starting to see where this team is proficient, where this team is just decent, and where this team has work to do. And I think in the realm of work to do, the biggest thing is more than likely going to be ending defensive possessions and grabbing rebounds. There's no reason this team should be bottom third in defensive rebounding percentage in any capacity. They have the weapons to execute to the manner they need to. They just got to get the job done.
And, I'll say it. It takes a lot for Stephen to say something is unacceptable. Like I said at the beginning of this little segment here, Stephen is the one that talks me off the ledge, not vice versa. And Stephen is putting in a lot of things in perspective for me, right? And he's talking me on the ledge is what I'm trying to say. And this was not a fun performance to watch. It left me very grumpy. And I'll be honest, I might have to forget about this one too, although I really don't want to. I feel as if it's a really good game for this team to learn from, but I feel as though it's a really bad game to rewatch.
Yeah, it is. But at the same time, sometimes the bad stuff is what you need to pay more attention to, because if they continue to resurface, you're going to start getting similar results where you're going to be coming up just short. So looking at the team, naturally, they're going to watch the film. I'm sure Nate and his film and video coordinators had clipped up plenty of plays looking at them not ending defensive possessions. After playing beautiful defense, there's a handful of possessions already kind of cycling through my memory as it is, to where they get an initial stop, they just don't grab the rebound, and the Connecticut Sun end up putting it back up. Those things are just tough to get over, but it's something that you have to, because you won't be able to course correct the trajectory of your team without addressing it. So again, naturally you don't want to see it happen, but it's good that it does, and it's good that it's happening this early. The teams that are the toughest for a team to go up against often reveal the weaknesses of a team in ways that other teams might not be able to. So naturally, with the Connecticut Sun, they reveal one of the biggest weaknesses on this team for the Phoenix Mercury in rebounding. I think that's a great thing for them in process. I think they might have one more matchup with the Sun. Don't quote me on that. I know they've played each other 3 times this season, but naturally, this is a team that you might end up potentially seeing come playoff time. And again, those parts of your process are not going anywhere until you address them. And I'm looking forward to them stepping up to the challenge. This is a team that's accepted challenges and adversity to the chin all season long. I don't expect for the rebounding bouts to come any differently than they've answered other questions about them. And again, we're speaking about, yesterday's game in particular, but on the grand scheme of things, they're one of the only teams that have a win against the Las Vegas Aces, against the New York Liberty, against the Seattle Storm, against the Minnesota Lynx. Those are the top teams. Those are the only teams that are ahead of them in terms of looking at the teams in the standings. The one team that is ahead of them that they have not beat or generally competed to the level that they desire to with on consistency over the games that they played against them is the Connecticut Sun. And I feel like that's why this loss, though it is not a pretty loss in any capacity, I think it's something that should be kind of bookmarked and just kind of referenced for something that I'm sure the team is going to be holding themselves in account to going forward.
To answer a couple of comments, Miss Chantel says, why are all the WNBA teams playing in the morning this week? Well, kind of the same reason as last week, actually. Camp week is a thing, and they take lots of kids, and it's a lot of fun. If you've never watched one on TV, watch tomorrow at 8:30 in the morning. I'll be honest, it's a lot of fun. The kids have more fun than I do, and that's really saying something.
Big time breakfast and basketball vibes the last 2 weeks. That's for sure.
I don't want to talk about what time the press conference is at in the morning. Oh my gosh, they really killing me.
Is that 6:30 for you? Sheesh.
Yes. I'm gonna be eating my Pop-Tart and talking to Nader at the same time. Just living my best life. And then the other comment I wanted to address is Ogre. Or Jake, BG is always ready to run back instead of sticking down low to box out. I think BG hates running, and she is just trying to get it over with each trip down the court. And I'm going to be honest, I kind of agree with you in that I also would agree that she kind of hates running, and she just wants to get back to the other end of the court. The thing that I've been most impressed with BG this season so far is her scoring. And I'm sorry if that makes me sound super ignorant, but she has scored at an extremely efficient rate. And so she had 9 rebounds against the Sun yesterday, and I personally feel as though that's a performance from her in particular we really can't complain about. And so personally, while I would love to see BG get Angel Reese level of rebounds, I just don't think that that's something I'm going to be seeing before the end of the season consistently. So I'm going to ask for things that I think I can get. Personally, I would love to go to an open practice and see Nate run some box out drills. I know we're like 35, 40 years old, and, some of them probably are tired of box out drills. But I'm like, please, can we just do a few, get things refreshed in their memory? Maybe they need just a little refresher. But we got some new commenters in here. My mom, Billy, is back in the chat for the first time in a couple of weeks. So I just wanted to say, again, shout out to you guys. Make sure you smash the like button before you go anywhere. And nonetheless, a couple of weeks ago, you guys, you may remember I taught Stephen live on air what a shit sandwich was. And now he built us our own today. And I could not be more excited to present it to you guys. So I think we should get in, with July as a whole. What do you think?
I think that's a good reference point. But before we go, I did just want to mention for McFubin's comment. I'm not sure if he's speaking specifically to BG on the offensive glass or the defensive glass, but just by my viewing of the team, it seems like in process, they value more getting back on defense in terms of not going for all-out pursuit of offensive rebounds, and they err on having their defense set or at least having their main rim protector back on defense. So I know I get what you're saying. It seems like BG's allergic to O-boards in a sense, but I think that's intentional because they would rather have her back for defense, and if somebody else can grab an offensive rebound, cool. But if not, at least we got our main rim protector back and our defensive anchor back. Also, naturally, with 4 guards on the floor, Brittany's going to be the slowest more often than not to get back across the half-court line. So I think in process, that's what the team generally desires. Now, I will say that there are opportunities where others may have a chance to sneak in and grab an offensive rebound. And just not to get too far in the weeds on X's and O's, but there are tactics that teams use even in the WNBA, but especially overseas, where they use the threat of offensive players going after their own misses as a opportunity for them to slow down an opponent's transition attack. So obviously we talked about BG not pursuing the old board. So take her out of the equation here. Imagine Diana Taurasi takes a step back three rather than having all four players run back on, or all five players, including BG, run back on defense like a lot of high school coaches teach. There's a contrast in process to where some coaches like for at least 2 or 3 of their players to attack the offensive glass. And that by nature, that forces opponents to go after the defensive rebound and box out. And if you're going after the opponent's rebounds and trying to box out, that's going to take away from players leaking out in transition and potentially trying to up the pace of the game. Slows the game down, and it really allows for your defense to stay set. And I think that's a little bit of what Nate is looking to keep intact in terms of their defensive process when transitioning from offense to defense.
Absolutely. See what I mean, y'all, about Stephen being the, person that talks us off the ledge. I'm the one that's pushing, you know what I mean? Nonetheless, though, I'm pretty excited. Stephen put together, I know Mark loves this. Stephen put together some really good math for us today. And so I'm really excited to get to look at this today. The Mercury have done a lot of good things this year, and they've also done some not so good things this year. But we're talking specifically about July. So just kind of looking at, per se, the good things that the Phoenix Mercury have done. Stephen, I'll kind of let you talk through the numbers.
Yeah, we're talking about the good right now. The Mercury are averaging 85, almost 86 points a game. That's second to only the Las Vegas Aces in the month of July. Obviously, you see the numbers that kind of align with that in offensive rating, the efficiency of all the shots that they're taking, 2-pointers, 3-pointers, and free throws included with all of that. In addition to the massive bump in free throws made and free throws attempted for this team. That's something that me and Erika have spoken to quite a bit this season in terms of them really being able to get their defense to a level that that Nate is looking to have them at. A lot of that is going to come from them improving their process on offense, kind of similarly to what Sophie was speaking to. Now, Sophie was speaking to them with their spacing and their movement and things of that nature. But I think tying into them keeping their defense at a certain level that should be league average, if not a tick or two better than that come season's end. I think their offensive numbers, particularly from the free throws made and free throws attempted realm, are going to be extremely key and important in that process. And we're going to speak a lot more in detail again to the one and only Kahleah Copper and the fireworks and scoring pyrotechnics that she's put on display this season, specifically in July, in the next segment. But I think she's been extremely big. She's been extremely huge in that spike up in terms of the free throws attempted and free throws made number. And I think we've seen in windows over the course of these games in July where their defense has been solid. I think a lot of that comes from Kahleah spearheading everything that we're speaking to in their process. And the efficiency, you can't speak to any of that without her. And I think everybody's going to kind of pick up the baton and kind of run in the same manner in which she is based off of how she's operating.
I don't think I've ever heard pyrotechnics used as an adjective.
You're welcome.
It's genius, bro. It's genius. That's too good. Yeah, but like Steve was saying, I mean, the numbers we just saw, not to say that should be good enough, right? But I mean, those are pretty damn good numbers. And there are some numbers you almost can't really ask for much better, such as the offense rating and that true shooting percentage. I mean, it could go up a teeny tiny bit, but how much more can you really ask for, right?
Exactly. And the thing with that should entail where a majority of this team's needing to sort things out, what side of the ball that's coming from in particular. So we saw all of those elite numbers on offense in July. And now as we kind of transition to the not so good and looking at things, a lot of the things we're going to be seeing when we get this graphic up is going to be coming specifically to the defensive side of the ball. So first of which we're going to speak to the just a mixed bag of results that we're seeing. We saw the strength of the numbers we saw in the good. Now look at where these numbers in terms of the bad are ranking. That contrast in terms of the good and the bad is indicative of the winning percentage and the record that we're seeing from this team in July, 3-3. I think that's very much indicative of the level of play that they've been showing in July. A lot of highs, but far too many lows to match the highs, to which we've seen them in limbo a little bit over the course of a handful of games. And just kind of looking at numbers specifically, that 14.3 opponent second chance points speaks to everything that we were speaking to in the Connecticut Sun game through that lens, especially in the conversation had with Sophie Cunningham. It's going to be hard to win games when you're giving up double-digit second chance points on average to opponents. Those are points that you're conceding to your opponents, in addition to anything else that they might be getting in terms of their scoring on first chance opportunities. That just makes for far too steep of a hill to climb in terms of getting back even. In addition to that, a lot of the points off of those second chance opportunities that they're seeing are coming in the paint. And I don't think that their defense in the paint is nearly as alarming as conceding the second most points in 42.7 points per game in July in the paint it seems. I think they're a lot better than that, but I think that a lot of that ties into the second chance opportunities that they've conceded. And by way of that, we've also seen the defensive rating tank from middle of the pack to being a bottom third, the second worst in the W in the month of July. And then naturally, obviously, you look on the other side of the column, the last two on the bottom right, offensive rebounding percentage only grabbing defensive rebounding percentage only grabbing 59% of the available misses, not going to get it done. And generally speaking, only grabbing 42.5% of the misses in total on your end and the defensive end, just not going to get it done. And then the other big thing within all of it is the movement, the ball movement in particular. There's been a lot of isolation or scoring from Kahleah Copper creating for herself. They have to get back to a space where they're creating opportunities not just for Kahleah, for herself, but where they're doing so for others within their offense. Ball movement, player movement, cutting, moving the ball from the first side to the second side to the third side to the fourth side, throwing it into BG, moving it back out. All of those little things that have made this team as prolific of an offense as we've seen over the course of the season, they need those things to resurface with some urgency, because there's no reason that they shouldn't be a top-end team in terms of their general assist percentage. I think Nate's spoken to it a handful of times, as well as Natasha Cloud. When their assist numbers are high and they're getting north of 20 to 25, getting close to 30 assists a game, and that assist percentage as a team is high, that's the indicator for this team to where they're operating in a space where they're keeping the defense in rotation and they're not just scoring on an independent individual isolation type of perspective on things.
Yeah, and I think something I think back a lot to, especially when looking at the graphic that Stephen just put up for us, when I think back to media day and I spoke with players for the first time, a lot of what they were saying, the identity of this team was going to revolve around the defense. And as the season has gone on, more than half of the games been played now. I mean, I'm not going to say obvious, but it has happened that they have moved away from that identity. And Stephen and I have also talked about how important it is for this team to play into their identity. So it's kind of hard for them to play into that identity when it kind of feels like it doesn't exist right now.
Yeah, and that's the kind of riddle on the season for this team. I think they have pillars in terms of principles that they look to consistently get into in terms of just kind of looking at how players are featured. You see a lot of Natasha Cloud guarding opposing front court players. You see a lot of Rebecca Allen guarding players that are more perimeter oriented. That's non-traditional, and I think that's to the benefit and to aiding the style of team that Nate Tibbetts has inherited. But I think within that, you have to have your identity pieces where you have your non-negotiables within all of that. I think defensive rebounding has to be maybe the biggest non-negotiable for this team going forward. As I think that, I really don't think this team is bad on defense at all, just in watching the film. Do they have room for improvement? Of course, absolutely. But at the same time, I do think they're at a level getting first stops to where they're good enough. And now it's a matter of mitigating those second chance opportunities. It's not going to be easy. Teams have this circled on their scouting reports going up against the Phoenix Mercury. Hey, they're going to give you an opportunity to grab offensive rebounds. More offensive rebounds, we win the possession battle against a team like the Mercury, the better chance we have to erase whatever type of advantage they might be able to create from the three-point line with them taking so many three-point opportunities. So just figuring out in their identity how to be more consistent and sustained in terms of crashing the defensive glass, I think will greatly aid their defense in general. And yes, I do think there's little things like they can be better with their switching in moments. They can be better with their communication in moments. They can be better with being on the same page when they're playing multiple defenses like we saw against the Connecticut Sun. There was a possession in the third quarter or early fourth quarter where the starters were on the floor, And they all weren't on the same page in terms of what defensive scheme they were in. I think they were supposed to be in zone, and they had a couple players that were in man-to-man responsibilities. It left everything distorted. The Connecticut Sun got a wide open, easy layup on the backdoor cut that was uncontested, and they had to call a timeout immediately. Those are like the little things that I feel they can improve upon, but I don't even think the little things like the switching that I spoke to and things like that are the most alarming. I think those things will happen in time as they spend more time together. Again, we're talking about a team that's played 15-ish games together consistently. That's a lot further behind the rest of the league.
I think I saw yesterday it's only 13.
My point exactly. So to that point, you have to, like, you think about where the rest of the league was when everybody was at 13 games. Now subtract all of that 13 and put the Phoenix Mercury at 0 because they hadn't had Brittany Griner and Rebecca Allen for a majority of those games when everybody else was either getting their main rotation back or already had their main rotation in play. So you have to kind of judge them on a different curve based off of the time that they've spent on the court together. And because of those things, like we talked about on the episode to start last week, I still don't feel like the sky is falling with this team in any capacity. Do they leave more to be desired in moments? Yes. Am I worried? No, because I don't think this is a team that you want to see in a playoff setting. They have too many dogs. They know how to figure things out, and they have a ton of players that have been to that level before in terms of getting to the championship level and seeing some semblance of success there. So I'm not worried about them at any capacity, but I do think that there needs to be a sense of urgency in addressing the weaknesses like we saw in the graphic request that I had recently when speaking to the things that weren't so good with how they performed in July.
Are you ready to talk about our MVP candidate?
I think that's a great transition.
I'm really excited about this. You know, there wasn't a lot of happy to talk about today. And in writing my notes today, I always get kind of grumpy when writing about losses. Like, you know, Stephen knows I take things a little more personally than Stephen does. So I get a little more butthurt than he does. That being said, though, he did give me something so good, funky, and fresh to talk about today. And that is just Kahleah's performance in July. And Stephen, again, I'm going to let you talk through the numbers.
Yeah, well, if we could get that, yeah, we got the graphic up. Before I even speak to the graphic in particular, I want to preface with saying Kahleah Copper in points created this season, 732. 732 points created in 646 total possessions. That's crazy. That's crazy. And as we see the numbers that are directly in front of you all now, she's second in the W in scoring in July. Second only to Asia Wilson, who's like 0.3 or 0.2 points per game ahead of her at this moment in time. Total points scored in the month of July, she's at 165. I mean, look at the free throw numbers. We talked about how in alignment with the team's free throw numbers, seeing an uptick are her individual numbers within that upticking. You see the efficiency that's coming with that. She's at like 84% on her 7.5 attempts a game, both of which rank in third. And then the last big thing there is the true shooting percentage, which is everything, all of the shots that Kahleah Copper's taking, the 2-pointers, the 3-pointers, and the free throws. She's just shooting the ball extremely well. Talked about in the Indiana segment to open the podcast this episode, how she's seeing the kitchen sink. You talk about the Indiana Fever. They're sending double teams from every which angle. You talk about the Connecticut Sun. They're bringing their bigs up to the level of the screen, trying to flat hedge her, trying to double team her sometimes, and just switching at times as well. She's seeing every coverage under the sun, no pun intended. And she's quite literally just embracing it. And she's beating opponents. She's operating in a space right now to where she's really scheme proof. And when she's operating like that, and you see everything else from the Phoenix Mercury operating to the level that is expected, if not seeing those players kind of punch even out of the weight class that they're expected to be in terms of their role with the team, you're looking at a team that's going to be a bona fide contender. And I'm saying that from this team being at a lull coming out of this game against the Connecticut Sun. Yes, I think it's important to bookmark it like I mentioned, but generally speaking and looking at this team, I don't expect this team to be the team that they were yesterday the rest of the season. I do think they'll learn from it. I do think they'll take that to the chin, like I mentioned as well. And I think they're a team that embraces adversity, but also embraces the challenge within the process of a season. I think that's something that they're going to take and they're going to run with it going into the latter stretch of the regular season, as we've already crossed the halfway point coming out of the post-All-Star and post-Olympic break. And I think that everything that we're speaking to is going to be spearheaded by Kahleah Copper. she is a leader, not by vocals in terms of commanding and leading from, words being said, though she can get there. But I think that her level of play, the energy at which she is exuding on any given possession is really what spearheads a lot of the things that the Mercury are looking to do. And no player more directly aligns with the identity that Nate is looking to establish on this team than Kahleah Copper.
I really want to say that above all else with Kahleah, she accepts coaching and takes it no matter what. And I think that when you have a player that plays at the caliber that Kahleah plays, and she's so willing to take coaching from anyone on the coaching staff, it speaks monuments about her skill set and her belief in this team's abilities, right?
Yes, correct. We talked about buy-in earlier this season. You don't get a team to play to the identity that the coach desires without the best player buying into everything that's being sold from that coach, and without those two in tandem having a relationship that extends past the four lines that are on the basketball court. You can't overemphasize that piece of all of it enough. And again, for those reasons in particular, is why I feel like this team is ultimately going to be where they need to be come playoff time. And also why I feel like because they have so many dogs on the team, because they have so many vets with the veteran know-how and they've been there before, done that before type of energy about themselves, it's just going to be too much for certain teams to match up with. And we'll be able to get into the weeds on potential playoff matchups based off of where the standings are over the Olympic and All-Star break, where we'll have a month and some change to kind of fill the gaps and just speak to the season as a whole. But I will say, we talked about the teams that this team has already beat. They've beaten every team ahead of them in the standings except for the Connecticut Sun. I think there's a lot of value in that. I think the fact that they won a handful of those games without Brittany Griner in the mix as well really means something. And I just want to make sure that we're not getting, and by we, I mean everybody, people that cover the team or people that just view the team casually as fans. I just want to make sure that we are not getting too caught up in the moment and that we're looking at things from a broader lens, because this team is going to be a problem when it really matters most. And that's what you really want.
Stephen, you talked us off the ledge. I no longer am on it. I'm excited for tomorrow's morning game against the Mystics. I'm ready to wake up bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, have my Pop-Tart while I talk to Nader Tot. What about you?
I am. I'm generally just excited to continue to watch this team, like I said, embrace the challenges that are coming. This Washington Mystics team, though they don't have the prettiest record in any capacity, it's not easy to beat. You're not going to just walk over them. Again,
The other thing I want to point out is this Sash Cloud's team. This is their last game at home before the break, and it just means more. It feels like the end of the season, even though we all know it's not. It just feels that way, so it just kind of carries more weight, in my opinion, for the Mystics than just an average game at the Mystics, right?
Oh, for sure. And I think, past even that, look at this road trip. The Mercury are on 2. They do not want to go on 3 on this road trip. And I'm double checking the standings now because Erika, you've communicated quite a bit that this team plans to be above 500 going into the All-Star break. Well, guess what? If they lose this game, they're at 500 now. If they lose this game, they're going below that. If they win it, they're going to be above it. So herein lies a perfect opportunity for them to check off a box on one of their main goals going into the All-Star break. Like you said, they wanted to be above 500. They're right at it, dead even at 12-12, dead even with the entire WNBA right now in 6th place. You win this game, you give yourself that opportunity to be where you want it to be, like you mentioned in terms of your goals. I'm looking forward to that piece. You talked about the revenge factor with Natasha Cloud. Naturally, that's going to be fun. I'd love to see Natasha get into her bag. But also, there's another player that was drafted by the Washington Mystics and was ultimately traded to the Chicago Sky, where she saw her career really take off. That's the one and only Kahleah Copper. Kahleah is a player that has a certain competitive edge and tick to where she certainly has. There's going to be certain games. She always gets up for a game, so it's not going to change. But I do think there will be something even a little bit extra just going up against a team that traded her. It's all love. There's no negativity within it, but I do think that there's always going to be something extra in games where, you see somebody that's the type of competitor that Natasha Cloud is, and also that Kahleah Copper is. add all of that context in addition to them desiring to be above 500 going into the break, I think it's going to be fun. But this Mystics team is not going to roll over. Julie Van Loo knocking down 3-point is crazy. We'll make every.
I don't want to think about it yet. Stephen, my God.
No, you have to. You have to. This is who they're going up against.
6:30 in the morning. I'll be there.
6:30 in the morning, exactly. Julie Van Loo getting the job done, making every pass in the book as a point guard, putting pressure on the defense. Ariel Atkins, a former Olympian, scoring in droves the last 5 or 6 games for this Washington Mystics team, just getting the job done. Stephanie Dolson knocking down almost every 3-pointer she's taken, it seems, at multiple stretches this season, especially
in the 3-point contest or what? Because they
need to put Big Mama Steph in there, have some front court representatives in there for sure. They talk about competitors. She's somebody that would certainly 1,000% embrace it too.
She would
100%. Aaliyah Edwards, another rookie that doesn't get talked about enough because of the attention that Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese and Cameron Brink prior to the injury were getting. The stuff she's doing in pick and roll as a roller, the stuff that she's doing on defense, the stuff that she's doing when she has the ball in her hands, operating on offense outside of being a roller, as a cutter, as a post-up player, playing in the mid-post and isolation, she's good. And this team is not the team that we saw when the Phoenix Mercury played the Mystics the first go-around. Now, naturally, they still haven't had Brittany Sykes, and they also haven't had who's their front court player? Shakira Austin. I just drew a quick blank. Yes, Shakira. Not having either one of those two players definitely matters for this team, but they have a certain level of execution that they play with, especially in front of their home crowd. And it's just going to be something that's going to be a good challenge for the Phoenix Mercury. I'm looking forward to waking up early. It'll be the game will be at 10 o'clock my time, so I'm looking forward to tapping in breakfast and basketball for myself. I'm gonna have some waffles in front of me while I'm watching the game, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this team steps up to the adversity. But also speaking to that adversity real quick. So you talked about what time it's going to be in Arizona, right?
Bro, I've already gone through this for the Phoenix Mercury and what time it is for them, really, on the mental side of it. On top of it, they've already played 2 road games, so their clock's already screwed up. And I don't like to make excuses, which is why I don't bring things like this up. But are y'all serious? Who scheduled this nonsense? I need a word. I've said it before on this show, and I'm gonna say it again. Kathy, please call me.
To your point, the game against the Connecticut Sun, 10 a.m. Phoenix time. This game against the Mystics, like you said, 8 o'clock Arizona time. That's tough. That's tough. But again, this team is not going to be one that makes any type of excuses for themselves. I just want to apply the context and just explain why things might look a certain way at times. They might not get off to a hot start. This might be a game where they really get it going in the second half and particularly in the fourth quarter. Can't be mad at them for that. At the end of the day, you want them to, handle their business and get the win. But this context certainly matters. This scheduling has been insane this season. And they're going to see 2 games back-to-back where they're not seeing the best of favors being done by the schedule makers. I'll put that lightly.
Before we go, I want to just respond to some comments really quick. Dylan, AZ, Erika, thank you for covering the team locally. You've been awesome this year. The X Factor loves you and your energy and your commitment to them. And then obviously some other people chimed in after. And before All-Star weekend, we're through half of the season now. And I know I speak for myself and Stephen and the whole production, team. Thank you for your support this season. It has been such a blast. It's been a dream come true in every sense of the word. I don't think you guys understand what an honor it is to do this for you guys. And so to me, this is the most fun I've ever had working. I don't know if Stephen can say the same, but I'm having a blast every step of the way. I get to see Stephen again this week. We've got some really fun content planned for you guys this weekend, and I'm really excited about it. And so I want to say thank you for putting us in the position to have these opportunities in the first place. We would not be here if it weren't for all of you. So I just want to make sure we say thank you before we have a really solid, awesome weekend with Phoenix hosting All-Star.
Likewise, like we said a handful of times, we can't be us without y'all. And our overarching goal with everything that we do is to make it more fun to be a Phoenix Mercury fan. I would say we've done that in droves, but again, we can't do that without you all. So we appreciate you all for always tapping in, supporting on social media, chopping it up with us in person, and just generally the community that we've established. I think it's something that every team in the W could greatly benefit from. And I'm glad that we, with PHNX and ALLCITY under that umbrella in general, can play a part in helping to make your fan experience that much more fun. So again, we can't be us without y'all, and we just appreciate y'all. We appreciate y'all. Thank y'all so much.
It's been the most fun season so far ever, so I just can't really say much else about it. Stephen knows I'm a big sap, and like I would say at least once a month we end the podcast and I tear up and I'm texting Stephen like, thank you so much for everything. I can't like do this with anyone else. So just know I really stand y'all with my whole heart. And like, again, I just couldn't do it without you guys. Seeing y'all at the games, seeing y'all on the streets. I mean, it's just how much more fun could I ask for, truthfully? So that being said, Stephen, before I see you this weekend.
Wait. I think that's the perfect time to mention the takeover taking place.
My bad, everybody.
The perfect segue.
I had to readjust my seat. Yes,
Boom.
We do have a takeover coming. And you know what? While we're at this is an extremely important takeover. This is August 26th versus the New York Liberty. I'm pretty sure our buddy Eric Ruby is going to be there. I don't know. He can give us a yes or no real quick. But that being said, it's going to be a lot of fun. I already know Steven's going to be there. I'm going to be there. Saul's going to be there. I would gander that Andy, Michelle, and maybe even Kobe are going to all be there this time. And y'all know there's a lot of Kobe and Erika lore, so you got to be there and catch up on all of that. You know what I'm saying? So that being said, make sure you get your tickets at gophnx.com. And while you're there, you might as well join the diehards, because if you haven't heard, I personally have more fun in the Discord than anyone else. Eric can probably attest to this. I'm in there 24/7 having a field day, whether it's terrorizing ASU fans, saying what's up to the Wildcat fans, or hanging out with the Merc fans. And even recently, I've been hanging out with the D-backs fans. You never know where you might find Erika in the Discord chat. So go to the link below, gophnx.com, and join right now. You get a free shirt or a free hat. I'm pretty sure one or the other. And then you can join the chat with us, and it's so much fun. But again, Stephen, where the heck can they find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at StayTrueS.3. You can find me on YouTube, Stephen Prisjon Gardner 3. Subscribe there for me, please. Got a lot more film sessions coming up. We'll definitely have some time and gap fillers for you all over the Olympic and All-Star break as well. So yeah, subscribe to me there. Also, we'll have plenty of ring content coming over the next month and some change before basketball resumes after tomorrow for the Mercury as well. So that'll be on the Go PHNX site. So tap in with us. We got tons of content on the way. And again, we appreciate y'all. Thank y'all so much.
Absolutely. And also, if you haven't been to the PHNX_Mercury Twitter account today, I have tweeted out some very hilarious things, including but not limited to Diana Taurasi TikTok dancing with Charisma Osborne. And quite frankly, that was the first thing I saw when I woke up this morning, and I knew I had to gift all of you with it. And so I'm so glad I did that, because it has brought me immense joy today.
I would say watching DT do TikTok dances is quite hilarious. Also seeing Tosh walking around back in the streets that she used to roam all the time, and just, walking down memory lane and talking about the humidity in DC, always fun.
I might have to upload the whole clip that I got of that, because it really is so hilarious. She is the funniest person on the face of the planet of Earth. That being said, though, also head to my Twitter at Erika Lee Day, and we will be back with you probably later this week with some not live content, but we'll keep you guys posted on that. So just watch out for the PHNX Sports on YouTube, and we will let you guys know what is up. Thank you, guys.
We all silly like the mayor.